something that comes up very often, and it comes up in many different forms. Some people ask, are they being too picky? Some people think they're never going to find the right person, even though they've been very open about it. And we're going to take a look at something that we as people do when we're looking for someone, and it's a mistake that can enormously impact our ability to find the right person. If we can stop doing this, we do really open up our chances. So let's start with this following either very wonderful or very scary thought. If you do a survey of the people that you know who are happily married, here's what you're going to find. If you ask them the following question: did you marry the person that you expected to marry? Most times I think you're going to find that they're going to tell you no. Now this is a bit scary because, hold on a second, I'm trying to find this person, I'm looking for this person, and I've got an idea of whom I'm expecting to marry, and now you're telling me that I'm going to marry somebody else altogether. So who is it that I'm looking for? On the other hand, if I'm not going to marry the person I expect to marry and I'm having tremendous difficulty finding them, maybe there is a chance that I'm going to find somebody. So this could be good news and this could be bad news, but we're going to turn it into good news. Okay, so I'm going to draw a very strange analogy, but I think we'll find that we do this a lot, okay? I want you to imagine that you have the perfect outfit. If you're if you dress as a man, then you're going to be looking for the tuxedo outfit. And if you dress as a woman, you're going to be dressed in this beautiful dress. It doesn't really matter what the outfit is, but I want you to imagine that you've got a beautiful outfit, and now you're trying to find a matching pair of shoes. Okay, now how long does it take to find the matching pair of shoes? How long does it take? Well, some people can go online and find it immediately. Other people can spend months hunting from shop to shop and just never find it, right? You can't know when the right thing's going to come along. But there are certain things that we're doing to make it a little bit easier for us to succeed or harder for us to succeed. The worst thing that we can possibly do is to walk into a shop and to say, hi, I'm looking for a particular pair of shoes. And then to have the person helping us in the shop say, well, tell me what you're looking for. And for you to give an complete to the last detail description of what it is that you're looking for. I remember meeting a girl once who was giving me a description of her perfect guy. And she actually described the length of his hair and exactly how it fell. I guess you won't be surprised to hear that she didn't get married well, I don't know if she even ever got married, but there was something a little bit dangerous about over prescribing this picture. So we go back to our shop and we say, it's like this, and we describe the perfect pair of shoes. And the shop assistant says, I'm afraid I don't have that pair of shoes, but how about you show me the outfit? So you show them a picture of the outfit, and then they say, oh, would you like to try on this one? And they bring out a pair of shoes that does not at all fit your description of your perfect pair of shoes that you've already pictured. And you look at the pair of shoes and you say, no, I'm sorry that this is not the right pair of shoes. And they say, well, I think you'll find that it matches the outfit very nicely. And you put it on, and surprisingly, it really, really matches nicely. But it's taking you by surprise because it's not what you had originally pictured. Does this open up your options for shoes or close them down? Well, of course it opens them up, because you only had one option until now, and suddenly there's this new option. Okay, so let's bring this out of analogy back into the land of reality. When we look for someone, we very often, without even realizing it, we visualize something. So I'm gonna prove to you that you visualize things even if you don't think you do. Okay, and you don't have to be a visual person to visualize something, right? Have you ever had a phone conversation with somebody, I don't know, maybe in a job interview or something, and then when you met them in real life, you just said, oh, I'm so sorry, I just assumed you were really tall, I pictured you very tall? Or have you ever had a colleague, and then very many months later you met their spouse and just found yourself completely shocked because it's not at all how you picture them based on the description or based on your relationship with their spouse? Now, if I had said to you, do you know that you picture and you imagine the people on the end of the phone? Or do you know that you have this weird thing that you go around picturing people's spouses that you work with? You would say, no, of course I don't. That's such a weird thing to do. When you meet them, you suddenly think, oh, that's really not what I pictured. I've been very thrown by meeting people who I didn't notice that I pictured either in an interview or on Skype or on the phone as being short, and then found out they were really tall. And I've been so thrown. I'm like, I feel like I know you, but I don't think I do. Or vice versa, right? Or people that you pictured were very slim or very round or very dark or very light. We do this all the time. We create a picture based on, it doesn't really matter what, you know, our psychological associations, our past understandings, the stereotypes that we have in our head. So we create pictures of the people that, you know, that we don't have any real reason to create pictures for. Of course, we create pictures of the people that we are really interested in finding, and that's our future partners, right? And here's basically how we create a picture. So we'll have a sense of, let's say, I'm looking for someone who's very strong, okay? And it could be that you're right, you need somebody who's very strong. But when I say strong to you, what pictures come into your mind? Okay, strong man. What does that look like? So everybody will have something different. Some people might picture the Incredible Hulk or Rambo or Superman, right? Some people might picture someone that really bullied them in school. Probably not. Some people might picture like a very special role model that they have, like a grandfather, an uncle, a father, a brother. What we'll do is when we hear the word strong, we'll quickly go through our Rolodex of people in our life that we consider to be strong, and we'll pick them up. So when I think to myself, I'm looking for a strong person, I have a whole bunch of pictures in, if you like, my mental Rolodex that I associate with this particular word. When I think of kind, I quickly picture either people that I know that are kind, or people that are represented in the media as being kind, or volunteer aides or nurses. I have a picture. Have you noticed in real life that sometimes people are actually more complex than they are in their stereotypes? Yeah, have you noticed that you might find someone who is really kind, they'll do anything for anybody, but actually their personality is like quite sharp and mean, and it takes a while to realize that they're kind, right? Or you meet someone who's got an enormous amount of interesting things to share, but they're really not very bubbly, they're quite quiet, and you have to draw it out of them. Have you noticed that you might meet someone who is very confident, but they give no confident vibes because they're so confident that they don't need to show their confidence? And you met somebody else who looks confident and you realize they're super insecure and they're overcompensating. You notice in life that people are a bit more complex? Of course they are. You'll know this about yourself too. The things that really define you may not be the things that people see when they meet you straight away. And when you think of a typical depiction of this personality trait, it can come in very many hidden forms. Characters are complex. Good actors, you know, don't do anger by going this, like this, right? And they don't do kindness by going like this. Okay, that's bad acting. That's like, you know, Disney. That's cartoon characters, caricatures. That's not the reality of complexity. You might find the meanest person you ever met is the kindest person you ever met, and the hardest person that you ever met is the softest person that you ever met. This is what happens in real life. So here I am, and I'm looking for a partner. And aside from the whole question of what's my type and my look and all that kind of stuff, which is actually a completely different conversation, which we either will or won't get to in today's class, we have a bunch of words that are true to us. Somebody may say, I know what I need. I need someone who is interesting and fascinating and strong and who'll protect me, okay? Now, if you take interesting and fascinating and strong and who'll protect me, and I give that as just a typical female example, a male example might be someone who is challenging and feisty and cute and nurturing, right? If you watch what happens in your mind while I throw those words out, you'll see that like things flip up in your imagination. Okay, let's just try this. Okay, I'm going to say a word and just see what comes up in your head. I'm going to say strong, kind, sly, manipulative, versatile, independent, clever, cunning, sweet, adorable, pretty, handsome. Okay, did you watch as like a Rolodex sort of started flicking? Okay, It's a very interesting self-awareness thing to see where your pictures go when my words come up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it much slower, and I want you to think of people who have this trait, but it's not at all typical. I want you to think of someone who is truly an independent thinker, but you wouldn't know it if you met them. I want you to think of someone who is truly beautiful, but perhaps you need to look twice. I want you to think of someone who is truly cool under their nerd disguise. I want you to think of someone who is truly humble, even though they may have a tendency to show off. I want you to think of someone who is truly good. You see that it takes a little longer to pull out our complexity Rolodex than it does to pick out our stereotype Rolodex. So you have a bunch of things that you know are really important to you. And it could be that you're wrong about them, but let's assume that you're right, that you've done your work, that you've worked with your mentor, that you're self-aware, that you've done all the background work to finding the right person, and now you really know what you want. Here's where it can get complicated. You might take this character that you've created, and you might very well have portrayed them in a picture, and now you're walking into a shoe shop with the pair of shoes that you've already designed. And now you're limited because the only one that is going to satisfy is the shoe that will match the one that you've designed. And here's the reality. You can take that same description and find 4 different pairs of shoes. You can say, well, I need this size, that's not budging. Here's the color of my outfit, but I guess 3 different colors could match that. I was thinking of wearing loafers, but I guess maybe I could wear a different type of shoe. I was hoping that the material would be so-and-so, but the point is what I need is to look good. I need it to match. I need to come across as put together, and I need them to be something I can walk in, okay? Those are the underlying characteristics. The color, the texture, the size, the shape, those are all the stereotype things that in your mind sort of come hand in hand with the virtues underneath the picture. But you can have those very same virtues. You can have a pair of shoes that fits you, that you can walk in, that makes you put together, that makes you look good. And you could find that there might be quite a few people that can actually match that picture. And very likely you can find that the best match for your outfit is not the one that you actually designed in your head. And that's where you'll find that people will tell you, hold on a second, I surprised myself with whom I married. Now that doesn't mean that I was hoping to marry a nice, decent person. Surprise, surprise, I married an ex-manager. What we're not saying is that you have to do away with all the self-knowledge that you had that led you to your picture. What we have to say, and we have to slow this down, is to say, I have a certain amount of self-knowledge. And this self-knowledge has led itself to a description. And the description is a description of my core needs. But what I've then gone and done is I've taken the description of my core needs and I've turned it into a blueprint. And that blueprint is limited. So let's give you some examples to back this up. I had a young woman who was very, very disturbed by the fact that the one thing she knew she would needed more than anything else was somebody who's really strong. And she kept on going out with these Rambo types, you know, Superman and Rambo and Terminator, like, you know, just like the really typical strong guy, because she had pictured strong as tall and muscly. And when I asked her what does she mean by strong, she really meant I need someone who's going to be able to make me feel safe and protect me, because those were her core needs. And she had pictured that in the picture that you do come up with when you think of someone who's going to protect you. It's someone who is physically strong and big and tall and capable of protecting you. And she kept on hanging out with these dates, and honestly she found these tall Rambo types to just be self-obsessed jerks, quite honestly. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the sort of self-obsessed gentlemen. Sorry, that came out all wrong. Okay. And she found them very unimpressive and also, and this is quite interesting, quite weak. By the way, so just as a side point, it's interesting that if you go to the East, what you'll discover is that the strong men there are much more slight than the strong men in the West. And if you talk to people from the East, what they'll tell you is that they see very, very muscly as actually very weak, because it's a sign that you have to compensate from a weak internal core. So they look at muscle as overcompensation, okay, which is really like completely different to how we see muscle, right? It's a different, but if you look at strong men from the East, they're toned and they're strong, but they're little. Here she was experiencing this strong muscle, weak constitution, weak inside, this compromising, compensating experience. And she just wasn't able to find, the strong guy she wanted. Anyway, one day she got set up with a guy. And first of all, she walked in and she was horrified to find out that I think he was like a tiny bit shorter than her, which was just like, okay, hold on. Whoever was listening to me was not listening well. Like we're not discussing shorter. We're discussing much taller, never mind shorter. So she sat down just thinking like, this is going to be horrific. And then this very strange thing started to happen in the conversation, which is that she found herself really finding it very interesting. And she found him being confident enough to show tremendous interest in her, which hadn't been happening in her previous dates. And then at one point they had a disagreement. She got very flustered and irritated and annoyed. And she found that he was completely unmoved, unflustered, disheveled, if you like, by her response. And he was able to hold tight and listen and point out the errors in her mistake. And then she went mental because she's very emotional, and she started to get all upset, and he was totally fine with that. And he reassured her and was rational but listening. And then she found herself starting to be vulnerable, and he was completely available and kind, and she didn't know what was going on. She was having the exact experience that she wanted, feeling somebody was stronger than her, and somebody was not easily flustered by her, and somebody was able to reassure her in her times of vulnerability and take care of her and protect her. And this guy was like little. It's just not what she pictured at all. She had pictured like a big tall man with cape, And she came back and she had no idea what to do, because the gap between her preconceived notion of what she would marry and this young man who was nothing like what she had pictured. I mean, they had nothing. These two pictures had nothing to do with each other. She was looking for a high heel pair of stilettos, and out came a pair of trainers. Like, she didn't know how to resolve that. And what we did was we went back to the reason that she had created her picture, and she wanted to feel strength, and she wanted to feel safety, and she wanted to feel taken care of. And lo and behold, in this surprising package, there was someone who made her feel that way. And suddenly he didn't need to be taller than her. He needed to be stronger, and stronger had a different definition. And he didn't need to be muscly. He needed to be protective, and that had a different definition. And she had to completely reconfigure what this guy that she knew she needed, and she was right about her needs, actually looked like, and it had taken a completely different form. Now, of course, then the next question is, are you attracted to this type? Yeah, all those things had to, it took her a while to just get her head to, I guess, manage her the changed expectations. Of course, she needed to be attracted to him. Of course, she needed to, be happy to be in this relationship. But there was a change, and the change was not what she needed. It's what she needed to look like. And it was that final photo of her original needs that she needed to move out of the way and replace with something that was more complex, but actually a much more true reflection of the core virtues that she was looking for to begin with. So, and I could tell you lots of stories like this. People who assumed that they wanted someone who was going to be, like really talkative and fun, because they had lots of things to say, and they went out with all these talkative people that they found really boring. And then they went out with someone who was sort of quiet and careful with the use of their words and the quantity of their words, but everything that they said was so deep and real. Oh, but I wanted someone who was really interesting, and I assumed that means someone who's just like lots of fun and has tons to say, but then I found out that most people just talk a load of nonsense, and that's actually quite boring. And here there was this quiet person who had so much quality in their conversation that I found that to be really engaging and interesting, even though they're not as talkative. I pictured myself with a talkative person, but what I meant was a person that I could really communicate with, that was interesting to me. I pictured myself with a really religious person, and I pictured that as a religious, as religious people look like, with their hats and their wigs or whatever it is. And I found someone who was deeply spiritually connected, even though they were coming from a completely different place in life. And I found that that's what I meant. I wanted someone who was successful, and I assumed that meant loaded and full of money and very in this, the restaurant scene. And what I found was there was someone whose definition of success took me by surprise, but they were very successful. And I wanted someone who was driven, and I thought that meant physically, but it ended up being spiritually. And I thought I wanted someone who was who was very confident, and I thought that meant they walked into a room and everybody turned their heads, and I married someone that nobody notices, but who doesn't need anybody to notice them, because that's what confidence can actually look like. I tore away my stereotypes without tearing away the description of what was necessary for me to be in the relationship that I needed to be in. And I made room for a complex picture. And in so doing, I was able to look at these new people that I was being set up with, suggested, that I was meeting randomly. And I was able to say, on first impressions, you do not look like my picture, but nor will my spouse probably. What you do look like, I don't know yet. But here's what I know I need. I need someone who can X, Y, and Z. And goodness, look at that. Whilst you don't at all fit my stereotype profile, you do fit my emotional needs profile. And I have to look at whether you've just taken me by surprise. But actually, not only are you different to what I pictured, but in many ways, you are an improvement to what I had pictured. There's this new pair of shoes, and it's not at all what you pictured. But actually, you look better than you would have done had you found the original pairs of shoes, because who says your picture is going to be the best there is? It's just going to be based on previous experience and stereotypes and memory and things that have fallen into your Rolodex, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best picture. So when I say, expect to be surprised, again, I don't mean, oh, you wanted to marry someone decent and instead you married somebody terrible. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is go back to what you know is important, and then allow yourself to be open about what that actually looks like, what form that's actually going to take. Don't give up on the things that are really important to you. If you need someone to keep you safe, marry someone who's going to keep you safe. If you know you need someone who's going to stimulate you, marry someone who's going to stimulate you. If you know you need someone who enjoys fun, marry someone who enjoys fun. As long as you're correct about that, that's a whole different conversation. Once you know what's really important to you, you don't have to give up on those core ingredients. But you have to know that those core ingredients can actually form many, many different cakes. And if the core ingredients are there, then it can take the form of many different baked goods. It really can, as long as it ticks the boxes of the initial core ingredients, and as long as once you've gotten over the surprise, you can really connect to this person. You do not have to, and probably won't, and if I may say so, probably shouldn't marry the person that you've pictured, because they're going to disappoint you if you picture them and they match that well. Be open to seeing what you're looking for taking different forms, and suddenly you'll find yourself open to recognizing the potential in many more people than you had originally assumed. So again, take that mental picture and tear up the mental picture without tearing up the original blueprint, without tearing up the original measurements. Keep those tight, because that's your self-knowledge and your self-awareness, and allow that picture to come as a surprise. Meet someone new and say, let me get to know you before I've decided that you're not the perfect person for me. And you might well find that your options open and your vistas open, and you have more choice than you think you did.